What's up? I'm Will Biven. My student number is 0765401, and I submitted an individually arranged cross-cultural, uh, no, individually arranged service project form that got approved for me to go to Cumberland, Kentucky to do a service project where I served at Club 180 Ministries for a week. And what we did was we got there on Sunday and we stayed on the property until Thursday when we left. And we would do things like all the kids would come to this school and we would do Bible stories with them. We would feed them. We would hang out with them, play games with them. We had to have object lessons and stations and crafts and all of these things. It's like a VBS, but the kids go to this all week. It's like their school for the summer. And so this is in a community that's really poor. About 50% of everybody there at some point will experience homelessness. And so this is a great way for the kids to have something to do for the day because some of them are living with six people in a one bedroom home. They don't have clothes that fit them. And so this is a way for us to go and spread the gospel with them and teach them about the Bible. And another thing that the Club 180 Ministries does is they teach moms how to properly take care of their kids because some of them don't know. And so they put Mountain Dew in the baby bottle. So it's definitely a redneck society in the Appalachian Mountains. So the first question I'm going to address is how did your faith impact your service experience? And I would say, as a Christian, we all have a calling to go and serve, not just Christians, but also the community. It's an evangelistic thing, but it's also a way for us to love our neighbor, which is the Christian calling and one of the commandments that Christ has laid upon us. And so this is a way that we can fulfill it, and this is how I fulfilled it by going to Club 180 Ministries and serving there. And we were also serving a faith organization. So we were helping this organization, Terry and Angie run it, and they serve the community. So the kids aren't all Christian, but Terry and Angie are. And so we're supporting their ministry. Some people do it through financial givings. We did it through hands on interaction and serving with the kids, helping them take off the workload and the burden that they have from that and ease it up for them. And we are also planting seeds in the youth, which is part of our disciple and evangelistic goals for Christians. I think that investing in the youth is a necessary thing that as Christians we need to do. This is the next generation, but they're also the people of God. I think that if we really start planting seeds in these kids, we'll find the fruit of it also later in their lives. Even some of these kids are coming to, I watch a few kids come to surrender to Christ and give their life over to Him, which I think is beautiful because I hope that this has fruit 15 years from now, 30 years from now, when their kids are going to Club 180. And I think that the Spirit living inside of us stirs us to do acts of service and to love communities as the Spirit uses that as a means to draw others into fellowship with God. And so that's how my faith impacted my service experience. And the strengths and gifts I utilized in the service that I did was I I feel called into some vocation of ministry, full-time ministry, and I think that'll probably be a pastoral role. I study theology at Lee, and so so the reason I went to this church was I went with the church, and so I was one of the leaders who led the trip, and so I was the speaker for the group large lesson, and we did the armor of God, and so every day I would get up there and I would speak to these kids, and I would take two pieces of armor each day. So we did that for 3 days, and then the first day we did the necessity of spiritual warfare. And so this was useful for me to utilize my gifts because like I had to now use what I learned on a higher level and now be able to teach this for kids. And so I'm up there in costumes and stuff, uh, trying to show them what the armor is and how we can apply it into our to their lives while having some type of spiritual depth, but also an easy understanding, easily accessible to these kids who are just in elementary school. And then aside from the large group lesson I did, I was in charge of the uh, object lesson group. So we would do something like we would get an orange and we put it in water. And if you start taking off the layers of the orange, the peel, then the more you take off, the more the orange sinks. And so it shows the need for us to have armor. And so I would lead object lessons like that. And so that was one way I was really able to utilize the gifts that I've been given, and then to use those and go and serve the community of Cumberland, Kentucky, in the Appalachian Mountains. The third question is, how did the service experience connect with your intended major or career? And I answered this in part on the last question, but I study theology. I'm in the classroom in academic settings studying the Greek. I'm reading about different New Testament authors, which is where our passage came from, but I'm also studying the Old Testament in classes. And so I'm able to hear about stories that I learned about in class, and I'm able to say, okay, we need uh, we need the armor of God because of spiritual warfare. Here's an instance of spiritual warfare all the way back in Genesis and Adam and Eve, and I'm able to explain this on a greater depth because of what I've studied in class. Um, and so my major has definitely helped me out a lot with that, and even giving me resources of how to know what resources are good to study, where to find them, and even having access through the library. It was super helpful in preparing for the messages each day. Um, uh, Also, and then my intended career is I want to be a pastor. And so this was literally what I did for the whole time out for like the 5 days I was there was I would get up on stage and I would speak to them, which is a key role for a pastor, and then I would also be hands-on with the kids every day. So I'm having one-on-one conversations with the kids, like, what are you learning? What do you think about God? What do you think about this? Um, and then they're telling me stuff, and then I'm able to kind of play this pastoral role on that type of level to these elementary school kids, which I found to be extremely impactful, and I thought was a good way to see. It was almost like shadowing for the job, where I was able to see like, hey, this kind of confirmed it, like, hey, like this is a big role of what it looks like to be a pastor, and I almost stepped into that for a week to see what that would be like for the rest of my career. And so that was super helpful and also gave me some more confirmation. And the fourth and final question is, how have these experiences impacted you and the person or organization that you served? And I would say it impacted me because of the people I saw. It's crazy how I can go 3 hours away into a community that's radically different, where most of the people have experienced homelessness. Kids are showing up there who have been neglected. They come with two different shoes on. They come with clothes. Like a little girl who's in first grade was wearing XL t-shirt, probably because that's all she had. These kids don't know how to eat their food. They're just eating with their hands and not using forks. They just haven't learned etiquette and things like this. And so super impactful for me to be able to see this one girl named Gemma, and how they told me she has a really hard home life. And then at the end of the day, she stayed a little bit after, and like we were able just to play together, and we raced up and down the hallway, which was super tiring for me for about 30 minutes, and I'm just running back and forth. But it was fun to see her smile, and so that was super impactful for me. Another way it impacted the community was by helping Terry and Angie, who's the couple that runs the organization. Um, and so we're able to take the burden off of them. We did a ton of preparation for the week. We had a ton of people on the team that was setting up decorations, setting up small groups, setting up stations, setting up this and that, and coming up with activities to do, getting the food. And we did all of that. And I think like that would be on top of what everything Terry and Angie do, that would be a huge workload that I couldn't imagine doing it. And so they were able to give some of that to us, and we were able to take care of that for them. So we definitely, for that week, we took the huge burden and workload off of Terry and Angie. It also impacted the kids because they had fun and they got to learn about Jesus. I think about what they would be doing if they weren't here, and I think some of them would be getting in trouble, and some of them would have a really hard home life, and this is an escape for them. And this is also something fun for them to do during the summer. And so it was impactful for me, Terry and Angie, and the kids, but it was also impactful for the community. This allowed the parents something to do while they're at work, for the ones that do work at least. There's not many job opportunities by any means, but it helped the community. And another thing we did for the community was at night we would do service projects for the community. And one that was super cool to see was we did a car wash, and a ton of people came, and we would wash their cars. We would give them food. We would hang out with their kids. We would do meet needs that they had, and so that was super impactful. My time is up with 10 minutes, But thank you for listening.